It's our community, and I'm so glad to see you back. We have a revisit today because when he was here before, it was so interesting, I didn't get through talking to him. So, Rafe Foreman is back here, and he is the Douglas Strip Dean's Distinguished Professor and the Director of the Advocacy Program at the University of Missouri at Kansas City School of Law. And they're getting ready to change the names.
Well, we got an email today by the Chancellor, and I don't know the answer to that, but there is a lot of discussion going on presently.
That's right. But for right now, it's the University of Missouri at Kansas City School of Law.
That's true.
And he is a partner in Foreman, Lewis, Hutchison, PC in Grapevine, Texas. So he does lots of stuff. And you know, I think it's worth just a comment here that you teach, but you also practice.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing because people sometimes teach too long and they forget how to practice and what the practice of law is really like.
I agree with you. We're very big on experiential learning at UMKC, and so in order to keep my skills sharp, it's important that I get in the courtroom occasionally.
That's right. And you are a graduate of the Trial Lawyers College, and you now serve as instructor. What is the Trial Lawyers College? Jerry
Spence started the Trial Lawyers College in 1994 because he didn't believe that law schools were doing a good enough job of training lawyers how to be advocates in the courtroom. And so it's a Trial Lawyers College for graduates who've practiced for some time to refine their skills and teach them advocacy skills for trial lawyers in the courtroom.
Advocacy for whom?
For the client.
For the client.
For the cause,
okay.
For whatever matter may be presented in the courthouse.
I think that's really good. But I want to discuss with you and ask you to make an educational comment on the Missouri plan of how we select judges.
Well, I believe that the Missouri plan is a fantastic plan. It's been adopted by over 30 states, and what makes it fantastic to me is that it takes politics out of the courthouse. There is a movement now to, in fact, it's going to be on the November election, to change the Missouri plan, and it seems to me to be a solution looking for a problem.
To appoint rather than, to elect rather than to appoint the judge.
Well, they want to change the way that the candidates are nominated. Presently, the State Bar of Missouri nominates 3 candidates from geographic regions across the state, and the other 3 are nominated by the governor, and they're citizens. They cannot be lawyers, and so you have 6 members on that committee. And then the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is the 7th vote, and they select judges based on merit, based on their qualifications, instead of based on campaign dollars and rhetoric. And so, as a practitioner, I've practiced for over 25 years. Missouri has the very best judges that I've encountered across the United States. This plan has been in effect for over 50 years, and it's so effective that over 30 states have adopted it.
Well, see, and I guess a major point, in my opinion, is that when one runs for political office, they have to have money to do so.
Right.
And people give them money, and often the people that give them money are people who are related to the law, either as lawyers or district attorney, whatever. And so the candidate finds him or herself already beholden when they're elected.
I agree. I come from a state where we have total partisan elections from our Supreme Court, our Court of Appeals, and our trial court. And can you imagine being a litigant in the most significant case of your life, and you get a solicitation from the judge before whom your case is pending saying, I need to raise campaign funds, I want you to be on my steering committee, or I want you to donate to my campaign, and they're not doing anything wrong. However, I'd like to quote what Chief Justice, or what Justice Sandra Day O'Connor said. She wasn't the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. If judges are subject to regular and competitive elections, they cannot help but being aware that if the public is not satisfied with the outcome of a particular case, it could hurt their re-election prospects. Ignoring such legal and political pressure, she noted, would be like ignoring a crocodile in your bathtub. Okay. And so we don't have a problem in Missouri. Not a single person has ever complained that a judge who is nominated through this process was unqualified or, for example, unethical or immoral. In fact, there's only been one, to my knowledge, and my research has revealed that there's only been one who was not retained. You see, the plan is that they submit 3 nominations to the governor, and the governor can choose one. If he doesn't choose within a 60-day period, there are some different procedures that happen, but he chooses. And if the public is not happy, they vote not to retain that judge.
How often is a retention vote taken?
I'm not exactly sure if
I think it's every 3 years.
Might be 4 years.
4 years,
I'm not
like
exactly sure on the time period, but it's. I think it's every 3 or 4 years.
I think that's right.
The public gets to vote, and if they don't retain the judge.
I think in Kansas it's 4 years.
Okay. They have the nomination process in Kansas too?
They do and they don't. It depends. In Wichita they run.
Right.
And in Johnson County here they do not. They're appointed by a panel, and then I think 3 names are sent to the governor or something like that.
And the same way in Missouri. In Missouri, there's 6 counties currently that operate under the plan. They happen to be the major metropolitan areas: Kansas City, St. Louis, and Springfield. Mm-hmm. But you know the history of how this came about?
No, I don't.
Do you know about a mob boss named Pendergast?
Pendergast, I
Pendergast?
do. Old Jim Pendergast, yes, I do.
Well, he's the reason that they created this, and the history's sort of interesting. He was influencing judges that were getting elected at the ballot box, and Rush Limbaugh's grandfather, the original Rush Limbaugh, came up with this plan to eliminate partisan politics from having influence on election of judges in Missouri, and they created the Missouri plan. And it's quite effective. The problem is not that the plan doesn't work. The problem is that big business and the opponents of the plan are not able to influence the selection of judges.
Well, nobody is.
Right. And what a great system that is. I mean, we should keep politics out of our courthouse.
I mean, you know, you say big business, but special interest groups are not either.
Well, I consider special interest to be an insurance company, and they're big business.
That's not necessarily true,
right,
because there are special interest groups that have nothing to do, you know. So, but the influence in the selection is what, or the lack of influence is really what's important.
I think so too. You wouldn't want to go to trial on a case where your opponent is the largest political contributor to the judge's campaign.
No, I think that makes me a little nervous.
Well, it does me. And as a matter of fact, in Texas, I have cases pending before the Supreme Court, and they switch counsel after the trial on the appeal, and it turns out that the counsel that they hire for the appeal is one of the largest contributors to the elected judge's campaign on the Supreme Court.
Do you think it's and I really hesitate to ask you what you do, but do you think it's well for a lawyer to contribute to no one, contribute to everyone?
You see, I love not being in that position in Missouri.
Well, that's right, you're not.
How in the world can you make that decision?
But you practice law in Texas.
No, and I've had many a partnership meeting with my partners, and we say, what do? We've gotten this solicitation. We can't very well contribute to this judge because these are public record. And so we contribute to this judge, but we don't contribute to this one. So do we contribute equally to all or none to all? It's a tough
call.
It's a very tough call to be in.
It certainly is.
And you don't want to have that kind of influence going on at the courthouse. The case should be determined on the merits. The judge should be determined on his qualifications. And I'll give you some examples of how bad it can go wrong. On our Supreme Court of Texas, they have a judge was elected who was arrested for scalping tickets outside the University of Texas football stadium. It's the same judge who they claim lived in his car during the election. He carried his clothes around and literally, it appeared, slept in his car. They have another judge who was indicted recently for some loan scandal on a foreclosure on his house, which I understand the charges were later dropped. But when you elect judges based on partisan politics, it's irrespective of their qualifications. In Missouri, we absolutely have, and especially in Kansas City and St. Louis, where we have the Missouri plan, you base the nominations on the qualifications of the judges. And it's a perfect plan.
It is, and you know, I'll tell you, in Kansas we have what we call I serve on this Judicial Qualifications Committee.
Oh, great.
And it is a committee made up of judges, lawyers, and private citizens.
Right.
And we adjudicate matters of ethics and morality from complaints. Now, a complaint has to be filed that are brought against the judges in the state of Kansas. And we had one that we felt was severe enough, we referred it to the Supreme Court, and that person lost his judgeship. It happened to be a male. And of course, the actionable malfeasances are, you know, you can take those to court, but we do the ethics and the morality end of it, which I think is really very good, and we get a lot of complaints. Some of them are without merit, but some of them are with real merits.
Right.
And we have an option of caution, or public censure, or private censure, or referral to the Supreme Court.
Well, you see, that's what's going on in this whole situation. Is it's an intricate system of checks and balances. You're involved in a system of checks and balances that works on a state and local level, and that's what we have in the Missouri plan. The opponents of the Missouri plan are trying to interrupt the checks and balances. Last time I told you that I believe tort reform and caps on damages are unconstitutional because they interfere with the unfettered ability of one of the three branches of government to supervise, check, and balance the other forms of government. And when you start messing with the whole equation, it messes up our entire system of government.
Well, the balance gets off.
The balance gets off.
And for ill or good, I mean, I make no value to it, but once the balance gets off, then the checks and balances don't work.
That's right.
I want to maybe change the subject just slightly.
Okay.
And I would like to talk about the subject of law and justice. And Oliver Wendell Holmes says, justice? You get justice in the next world. In this world, you have the law. And a man by the name of William Gaddis says, this is a court of law, young man, not a court of justice. So what's the difference here?
Well, it's interesting. We talk about this a lot at the law school because our students have the same question. The rule of law, the black letter law, as law professors like to call it, is the law as it is written, as it is proposed to be, versus the application of that law, or the way I define justice, is righting a wrong. And so black letter law, standing by itself, doesn't necessarily address a wrong, nor does it serve to correct a wrong. However, justice requires that a wrong be righted. And depending on your perception and what side of the docket you're on, that can be many different things to the litigants, the judges, the jury, everybody that's
Because
involved.
I would submit to you that justice is a very subjective subject.
I agree with you. I think it is. Although I think truth is a very subjective subject
so
as
too.
well. You know, I hear people say, well, it's the truth, it's the facts. I just want to know what the facts are. Really? That's your truth. That's not necessarily my truth or her truth or his truth. I think the truth is a perception. I also think the facts are a perception. To me,
But the perception
that's what
becomes
matters.
the truth.
That's right. Perceptions become
Becomes the
reality.
truth, yeah.
It's not as important to me what the facts are as to what the perceived facts are.
That's right.
It's exactly what's going on in this Missouri plan. There is a perception out here that one interest group has more influence over the nomination of judges than the other. When you look at the facts and you look at the truth of what's going on, that's absolutely not correct. But, you know, you throw it out there, you use it as rhetoric.
But the other side of that coin is that the people shall decide.
Oh, that, yeah, right. Right, and that's coming in November.
Because remember, we had this conversation about juries
Right.
the last time you were here, and I said some of these people that are chosen for juries really are not capable of making the kinds of decisions that often they are asked to make. And you said
They are. And the reason
right.
that they are is because our government was not created for the smart, the rich, the powerful, and the famous, but it was created for all the people. And that includes the people who are illiterate, the ones that can't drive.
I gave you a chance to say it again.
Yes, and I love it. And I am a true believer in that system because, you know, everyone adds value.
Yeah.
Everyone, even the person who is the least among us. If justice and our laws don't apply to the least among us, we're next. It does not apply to any of us.
I had an interesting thing happen to me. I, at one point, worked for the United States Department of Education, and I had 4 states, but I had Illinois for a 5th one. I had Illinois for a while. And I was asked to appear with Congressman Danny Davis from Illinois at an education open house, you know, talk. He was, you know, talking to his constituents and that kind of thing. And it happened to be in the projects in Chicago. And I thought to myself, this is really going to be a waste of time because, you know, obviously. I was amazed at the good questions that the people asked, and there was a nice crowd that came. They all, and the point is that no matter how poor or what color or point of origin, everybody's interested in education for their children.
I agree with that.
And these people in the projects really asked good questions. So back to your point that people do have value, that came home to me really right between the eyes.
Right.
It did.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because I just recently came back from Uganda where I trained 32 lawyers, and it was so interesting to me to see how much they value their system of laws and courts. It's a very different system than ours. And I came back with a greater appreciation than I already had for our jury system because they don't have a right to a jury. They have a judge that they call their a lord, and it's my lord this and my lord that.
Ooh, that's a good job.
Yeah, and they act very differently around a judge who decides all disputes. Here we're free, and we put our power in the people. And when those people render their voice, and we put our power in all the people, not just the chosen few, not just the select, but in all. And I really believe that's the best system in the world.
Okay, I'm going to make it come up out of your chair now just for a minute here.
Nah.
Do you believe that when the system gets too egalitarian, and you know, we're laughing about calling the judge my lord, but when the system becomes too egalitarian and then we're all equal, do we have the same respect for the opinion that's delivered when everybody's on the same level?
That's a great question. In fact, I would say that the respect that I saw from the litigants in Africa was humbling to me.
Yeah, see there?
But let me give you a different opinion.
Okay.
Or let me give you a different spin on that.
Okay.
I think that when you have a judge who does not follow the rule of law, who creates his own, who interprets his own way, and does so for political gain, that we lose respect for our system. And because of that, and what we see by partisan election of judges, when that happens, we lose respect for the position and the power of the judiciary.
But in my opinion, what happens too is that people forget that with the honors and accolades that are given to us comes a tremendous responsibility.
No, I agree.
And that to me is where the disconnect comes.
Well, you know, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Exactly.
And I believe that.
I believe that
And
as
so
well.
when we elevate a person to a higher status, a higher position, we have a right to expect because we place more trust in them. And so the opportunity for a greater betrayal exists because we have placed more trust in this person who has this position of representation and representative power.
I agree with you.
But if we take away the opportunity to correct that abuse, then we're in bad shape, which is why we have elections, why the people can vote people out, why we have non-retention elections or retention elections, however you want to say it, so that the people can say, you know what, we made a mistake, we've got to fix this.
Well, it does give you a chance to go back and revisit the subject, which
Right.
is always good. You know, of course, I try to read up when you come because I got to be sharp. And I was looking and I noticed that Henry Ward Beecher said that every new time will give us law. And I think that there is something really important in that, because as the times change, the laws must change. It's like any other public policy.
Right.
You want to?
No, that's right. When I started practicing law, I believe that the breath alcohol level to drive a vehicle was either 0.12 or 0.15. Now it's 0.08, half that limit. Why did it change? Because of the carnage and the death that we're experiencing on our highways. The sad part about it is texting and driving is 35% more likely to result in an injury than drinking and driving. And so our laws have to adopt and have to change. We have too many people out here texting and not paying attention.
They're not paying attention?
No, they're not. In fact, almost every wreck that goes on, the first thing that goes through my mind is they were texting or looking at their cell phone. And so we have to adapt. That's just a small example that sort of touches everyone. Another example is we're going to have to change how we fund education.
No kidding.
And I don't want to bring up any specific local examples, but we are going to have to change it. Someone is going to have to come up with a system that is better to fund education, or we are going to have an entire generation of, I don't want to say illiterates, but
we are turning out thousands of functionally illiterate children.
I agree
thousands.
with you. I agree.
But I think the operative word I need to pull out here is system.
Mm-hmm.
To system to fund, but also a system of delivery of information.
Right.
And one further thing that we must put in is a system of expectations,
Mm-hmm.
a system of what we intend and everybody has to be on the same page. You know, we can't have this one saying this, that one saying that, this one doing that, and somebody else. Expectations and accountability have to be in place and have to be insisted upon. Otherwise, they're not going to work.
Right.
Everybody runs their own show, and that's just bad news. And I think it's that way with the law as well. I do. You know, sometimes it takes 100 years to get a law made and 100 years to get rid of it, too.
Well, I think it takes 100 years to get a law made, and maybe 1,000 to get rid of it. I'm unfamiliar with, I couldn't name 15 laws that have been repealed. It's like once we get them, we're stuck with them for the rest of our life in eternity. It just is. I mean, they just now repealed the law that it's illegal to carry pliers in your pocket down in Texas because, you know, farmers were cutting the rancher's fence. And it's also, it has been illegal for years to see a coyote and not shoot it in Texas. I mean, you had affirmative law requiring you to shoot coyotes. And so the law must change. The law must be a living, breathing entity that conforms and changes to the needs of society. And you see it, and I see it.
But to me, the law is just like any other public policy.
Mm-hmm.
Good public policy has to be revisited regularly.
I agree with that.
I mean, to me, it's not rocket science. It's just a lack of initiative, a lack of the ability to make good public policy. I don't know what it is.
Right. Well, I want to go back to a question you asked me earlier.
Okay.
Do we have a time?
Oh, sure.
I just was in Detroit where the mayor of Detroit's been indicted and he's on trial, you know, for embezzling funds. Big surprise. From the Water and Sewage Department. Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Gosh.
And when you see that, and Mayor of Dallas and some city councilmen in Dallas were just indicted and convicted for the same thing. We lose faith in our representatives.
Sure.
We lose faith in the system. We lose faith in the government. We lose faith in the belief that they're doing the right thing and they have they have our interest at heart. And so, what do we do about it?
Well, somebody has to be courageous enough to stand up and do something, which is we're kind of lacking those folks.
Mm-hmm.
The operative word here is faith, because once people lose faith, then the next logical progression is that we lose trust.
Mm-hmm.
And once we've lost trust in the system, then it doesn't work because people say, pooh.
No, I agree. Think of how many listeners watching this show today are counting the days to the election so we can quit hearing all these commercials.
I'm one.
So I'm one too. I'm so sick of hearing who did this and that and the other, and you know, we don't ever have any commercials hardly saying what I'm going to do for you. It's just, this is what this person did that's terrible, and you need to know about it. It's just, it's so depressing.
It's very depressing. It is very depressing. But the other side of that coin is, too, that and nobody has a plan of any sort.
Nope.
And the other issue is because of our governmental system of checks and balances, the president, no matter who he or she may be, cannot do it by him or herself.
Right.
So the rest of the sentence is, I plan to do this in concert with the people, the Congress, you know?
Right.
We have to learn to work together.
We do. Consensus is so important for effective government, leadership, cooperation from the citizenry to the governed to the governing. And we are lacking that from our local politics all the way up to
But
Washington.
I think people have lost faith and trust in the political system.
Have you?
No, I keep at it. No.
I mean, I keep believing, but how's it hard? It is so hard to have faith and hope when you see what's going on.
I know.
Because it's just so depressing.
But see, I also believe, Rafe, that once we quit,
I agree.
Then we have joined the masses of the blobs out there. I mean, you know, you can't quit. You have to keep trying to make something better.
I agree with you.
And so that's why you and I hope we're not going to have a heart attack in the next couple of days, because we need to keep trying.
No, I agree. We can't quit. We can't give up. No. I used to have a secretary that would tell me, just keep pedaling. I know it seems like it's uphill and you're not getting anywhere, but just keep pedaling.
That's what my mother used to say, just put one foot in front of the other one and just keep going forward.
I agree with that.
And we have to, because I don't know. But it does, I must admit, sometimes it seems like we're not getting anywhere. But, you know, we just have to keep trying.
And I have a theory about that, you know, and I don't mean to bring the Columbine shooting and the shooting at the AMC Theater in Colorado and all that stuff. But we have so many people in our society that are disenfranchised that they don't believe that working hard, becoming educated, and doing the right things are going to eventually ever pay off. And so they lose faith, they lose their patience, and they want to take what they believe they're entitled to, or they want to retaliate in ways that are inappropriate. And it's a sad state of affairs. And what's the answer to it? Education.
Absolutely.
And fairness.
And fairness.
And so I think we need to put fairness back into everything we do. Is it fair to all concerned?
That sounds, you're a Rotarian.
I've heard it somewhere before.
But I do believe that justice under the law is really where we're headed. And I notice, you know, all the quotes never say law, law dost thou pursue. They say justice, justice dost thou pursue.
Right.
And so but I think there is a marriage there. And I think that those of us who are thinking about the subject will continue to look for true justice under good law. Well,
I believe, if you've seen the movie The Verdict.
I did.
Paul Newman gives an excellent closing. And what he says is, all that is needed for us to find justice is to act justly. Just do the right thing. Stop doing the wrong thing. And that's all it takes to find justice. I believe in that.
I do. I do. I absolutely do. I think that I have to ask you, will you come back again? I just love it when you come back, because we talk about the most interesting things.
Well, I'll come back anytime you want.
Oh, you and I just talk away.
We do.
But I have to say that it's just been such a pleasure to have Rafe Foreman, and he is the University of Missouri at Kansas City Douglas Strip Dean's Distinguished Professor and the Director of the Advocacy Program. And we need more people like you, Rafe.
Need more people like you. What you're doing is a good thing, and thank you for having me as your guest.
It is always a true pleasure, and it's always a pleasure to have you join us, because, you know, it's our community, and we're all in this mess together. And I can't think of the congresswoman from Texas named Barbara Jordan. She said, you know, we may have come to this country in different boats, but we're all in the same boat now.
That's right.
And I believe that too. Come see us again soon. I'll be looking for you. It's our community, you know, and I'm Mary Davidson.